Quick question. Did you know American trucks didn't always have that long hood out front? Plenty of them used to look just like European trucks look now. Flat-faced, engine tucked underneath, nose right against the front wheel. Then one law changed in the 70s, and almost overnight, American trucking swung hard the other way, while Europe went the opposite direction entirely. It's not that Americans just love big engines, or Europeans just care more about efficiency. Two different rule books, written decades apart, quietly forced two completely different machines out of the exact same job. Once you see the actual law behind each shape, you'll understand something real about cost, safety, and the life of whoever's behind the wheel, and you won't unsee it. Here's that law. In Europe, regulations cap the total length of the truck and trailer together, one number for the whole rig. So if you want more room for cargo, you have to shrink the truck to make room for a longer trailer. Manufacturers push the engine down and underneath the cab, creating that flat-fronted, cab-over-engine shape, so almost every inch of legal length goes to the trailer instead of the hood. Now here's the part almost nobody learns. American trucking used to run under a similar rule too, capping overall vehicle length, and American trucks back then looked almost identical to European cab-overs. But in 1976, that overall length cap got lifted, and the rules shifted to regulate trailer length alone. Therefore, there was suddenly zero penalty for a longer hood, and manufacturers swung straight back to the long nose within a decade. For a European fleet, every wasted inch on the hood is lost cargo space and lost revenue on every trip. For an American manufacturer, that penalty simply never existed, so the choice came down to comfort instead. That same law explains something you might not expect: safety. That long American nose acts as a crumple zone, giving the driver several extra feet of steel between them and whatever they hit head-on. European drivers sit almost directly above the front bumper, so their protection comes from a heavily reinforced cab structure instead, built almost like a survival cell. Different solutions to the same problem, and despite the wildly different architecture, both regions report broadly similar overall truck safety outcomes. There's more than one right way to protect a driver's life. Now let's talk about money, because this is where the pain sets in for European operators. Diesel in Europe typically runs 60 to 90% more per gallon than in the United States, mostly from heavier fuel taxation. Therefore, in Europe, fuel efficiency isn't a bonus, it's survival. That flat cab over front is dramatically more aerodynamic, cutting through the air instead of shoving a flat hood through it. Pair that with smaller turbocharged engines and automated transmissions shifting with computer precision, and European trucks squeeze real savings out of every gallon, savings that compound fast over hundreds of thousands of kilometers a year. American trucks took the opposite bet, leaning into bigger displacement engines and raw torque, because with cheaper fuel and wide-open interstates, horsepower sold trucks better than a few extra miles per gallon ever could. For a European fleet manager, shaving 1 mile per gallon can decide whether a route actually turns a profit. For an American fleet on cheaper fuel, that pressure just never existed, and efficiency in Europe didn't stop at the engine. Walk around a modern European rig, and you'll find trailers that automatically adjust their height to match different loading docks, air and electrical lines that snap together almost by themselves, and trailers with steerable rear axles that swing through tight turns with surgical precision. American trucks took a completely different comfort strategy, leaning into bigger cabs and a thriving aftermarket industry building custom interiors, because comfort in America was solved with space, not automation. I talked to a driver who spent almost a decade in a big American conventional before switching to a European fleet running Rotterdam to Berlin. He figured fuel savings would surprise him most. It didn't. What caught him off guard was hooking up a trailer in the pouring rain at 2 in the morning, connections snapping together in seconds instead of him fumbling with hoses in the dark. Small detail, but across a whole fleet doing that hundreds of times a week. Those saved minutes turn into real turnaround time and labor savings at every single depot. That space question connects to something even bigger. Who's actually driving these trucks and how they live? In Europe, most long-haul drivers are company employees running scheduled routes, usually home on weekends like any other job. In America, it's almost the opposite, and that's not an accident of culture. It traces back to a law, too. In 1980, the Motor Carrier Act deregulated American trucking, tearing down the barriers that made it hard for independent drivers to get their own operating authority. Almost overnight, the share of for-hire truckers working as owner-operators instead of employees more than doubled. Therefore, a huge new population of drivers suddenly owned the truck they drove, and that truck had to become their home for weeks or months at a stretch, not just their workplace. That labor law, more than any marketing decision, explains why American cabs grew bigger, added kitchens and lounge space, while European cabs stayed compact, because a European driver only needs to sleep in it, not live in it. If you're actually weighing whether the owner-operator life or a company driver route fits you better, or you're a fleet manager wondering whether bigger cabs or smarter automation actually solves your turnover problem, that's exactly the decision this next thing was built for. I've put together a free checklist walking through the trade-offs we just covered: cab space against route efficiency, ownership cost against schedule predictability, mapped against real trucking situations, not generic advice. It's linked right below this video, completely free. Grab it now, because there's one more piece of this story that explains where all of this actually came from. Because none of this happened by accident. Decades of trucking industry lobbying in the United States pushed for wider interstates, higher weight limits, and infrastructure built almost entirely around vehicles instead of pedestrians. The same era that gave rise to sprawling suburbs and drive-through everything. That fight over roads shaped trucks too, reinforcing a culture where bigger was simply better, on the highway and off it. Europe took a different path, keeping its tight historic streets and dense downtown cores instead of bulldozing them wider, which meant trucks had to adapt to the cities, not the other way around, reinforcing that same compact cab-over shape decade after decade. The shape of the truck rolling past you today is really a shadow of 50-year-old policy fights that had almost nothing to do with trucking at all. So which one actually wins? Honestly, neither, and that's the point. A European cab-over is a brilliant answer to expensive fuel, strict-length law, and city-heavy routes. An American conventional is a brilliant answer to cheap fuel, wide-open interstates, and drivers who need their truck to double as a home. If your operation runs short, dense, repeated routes, the European approach starts looking incredibly smart. If your drivers live on the road for weeks at a stretch, that extra cab space stops being a luxury and becomes a necessity. The real skill isn't picking a side, it's matching the trade-offs to your routes, your drivers, and your bottom line. So before your next truck decision, ask yourself one honest question. Are you really paying for miles, or are you paying for a home on wheels? That answer tells you almost everything about which philosophy actually fits your life. If this kind of behind-the-scenes breakdown is something you enjoy, hit subscribe, because we're going deeper into the real engineering and economics behind everyday machines just like this one. Thanks for riding along, and I'll see you in the next one.